Hi everybody, and welcome to part 2 of my Florida trip. Last part was the Georgia Aquarium where we stopped for a night. This night we made it down to Tampa. This was first thing in the morning, about maybe 5 or 6 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I went out and just to see what I could see, and this Bottlenose Dolphin came over and was showing off for me. You can see a little bit of boat damage on his dorsal fin. Yeah, he came right over and definitely showing off. I guess he liked the light. Yeah, awesome to see. This is the first dolphin I've ever been up close to. Also on this little early morning wander, I found a garden snail. Nothing special, but under the black light, they actually fluoresce blue, where under normal lights they're just kind of brown. So really cool to see the fluorescence. There's tons of different species that actually fluoresce under a black light. Then here we have a little shore crab, little mangrove crab. This one's nothing special, but then while I was down here, this other one here actually is a fresh molt, so he was still a little soft. I'll explain my hands later in this video. But yeah, he just recently molted, so that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, so later in the day, a couple hours later, daylight, it was a rainy day, unfortunately. Had to pull off and watch the storm from under this bridge. Super cool to see it. Down in Florida, I mean, on the open ocean, you can just see the storms rolling in. So that's a ton of fun. And it actually rained pretty hard. You can see this here, the flooding that happened while we were down here. Just super quick. It was kind of a runoff area, so it was meant to flood. But then we went to the Moat Aquarium just because it was so rainy. And they had lots of cool stuff. I love the dwarf cuttlefish. One day I'll do a tank of these. They're one of the cephalopods that do better in aquariums if you can provide the food for them. But one of the better things they're known for is actually this giant squid that washed up on the Florida shore. And they actually had to shorten the long tentacles. So it's actually about twice this long from end to end. But they have a lot of native fish here, a lot of kind of Florida coastal inhabitants. Yeah, this tank full of bonnetheads. I love bonnethead sharks. A lot of cool, these little blubber jellyfish. These are actually available sometimes on my aquarium wholesale lists. Then we went to a nearby state park. Check out this zebra long-winged butterfly. Absolutely beautiful. I've only ever seen them in kind of public displays, never in the wild. Then a little alligator over there, and found our first reptile. This is, besides that alligator, Everglades rat snake, or they're actually just an eastern rat snake. I always thought they were a subspecies or something, but right now they're classified as just eastern rat snakes. Stunning snake, probably one of the prettiest snakes I've ever found. I cut my hands up on some oysters or rocks somewhere, but yes, absolutely beautiful snake. And so interesting because we actually get these all the way up in my area of Ohio, Kentucky, and they're pretty much solid black as adults. Sometimes they have a gray mottling, but the babies actually look like a gray corn snake. I'm not sure what the babies of the kind of Florida color variation look like, but the adults are, as you can see here, super pretty. Let him go back up in the tree. They're great at climbing. They'll go up and eat birds and whatever they can get a hold of that's warm-blooded. But yeah, in this state park, there were tons of invasive fish, actually. We did see an Asian swamp eel. I wasn't able to get it, but here are some big wild plecos just hanging out at the bottom of this river. So weird to see. Yeah, the water in Central Florida especially, but even South Florida is so clear compared to anything I'm used to. Here's a big old, I believe a blue tilapia guarding a nest. They kind of clear out this big sand patch in the riverbed, clear all the debris out of it. Then this here is a greenhouse frog. These are one of the smallest frog species in the world. This is a full-grown adult, I believe, and it could fit on my fingertip. So tiny. But yeah, they're actually out of, I believe, the Caribbean, kind of different islands. They were introduced to Florida in. So this one was super interesting. This is a red-tailed shark, common aquarium fish. I had not heard any records of these in the wild yet, but this one's decent size compared to what you see in aquariums. This one's probably 4, maybe 5 inches, because I spotted it pretty easily. They got that nice bright red tail on the jet black body, and a big pleco right there beside it. So not great, but definitely interesting to see. I love kind of looking for invasives while I'm down here. It's just so cool to see stuff like this in the wild. You normally see it in a glass box in a pet store. But yeah, this was Hillsborough State Park, right outside of Tampa. Beautiful state park. And They did have some snakes. This is a black racer. Super cool to see. These guys are usually pretty bitey. They're super alert for a snake. Their eyes are definitely kind of watching you. And he did get a hold of me. Cute little guy. It doesn't hurt when it's something this small. But they're definitely a bitey snake. And they actually wiggle their tail kind of to mimic a rattlesnake. If they were on dead leaves, it would sound like a rattlesnake. There he goes, disappearing into the tall grass. But yeah, right outside of here, there was this kind of burn area where all the vegetation, all the small vegetation was dead. So it was actually really easy to spot these guys out in the open. A little bit camouflaged, but not too much. But they were quick. There were a couple that already were in their burrow and I just saw their tail. But yeah, that brings us to the nighttime. I tried for freshwater. I wanted to go catch some of the invasives we were seeing. This is a Mayan cichlid. They're very, very common in South Florida. Probably the most common cichlid down here. But I was only able to catch this small one. So we went back to the place and went down in the saltwater to try that. Here are some breeding fighting conches, or conchs, however you want to pronounce it. But that is actually an egg case coming out of the one. So super interesting. I've never seen them breeding like this. I've seen the egg cases, but never one being produced. So this little guy here is a long claw hermit crab, and he just couldn't get a grip in my photography tank, so thought I'd include him here. Then this here is a lightning whelk. We saw a lot of these guys on the beach also, but let's get on to some fish. So first up, I caught a decent sized sheep's head in the dip net, just walking around on the shoreline, scooped him up. Super cool, just so you can see how rocky it is here, which is kind of perfect habitat if you want to flip some rocks and swing a net, see what swims out. They've got some crazy teeth. But yeah, they use those teeth for chomping on the piers and stuff, all the little crustaceans and shellfish all over the docks. They sit there and pick at snails, crabs, whatever they can crack up with those teeth. Interesting looking fish for sure. I don't think I've ever caught a big one. I don't actually fish often. These are very popular fishing fish, but I like to use nets, so not the easiest to catch in a big dip net. Next up here is a striped majora. Another cool kind of game fish, sport fish. I believe people fish for them. Interesting. I've actually seen these in aquariums before. They do look interesting. In a brackish aquarium, they'd be neat. Then next up is a pistol shrimp. Super unique. These guys are very popular in aquariums. They'll actually pair up with a watchman goby. The shrimp is pretty blind, and the fish has a good set of eyes, so they'll actually keep one antenna on the fish, who like kind of keeps watch for predators while the shrimp digs the burrow. And they can actually click their that enlarged claw they have there and fire a jet of water to kind of defend themselves. So super interesting. Next up here is a Gulf toadfish. These guys are adorable. I love toadfish, love them in aquariums. But yeah, as you can see, super unique. They actually sell them in the aquarium trade. Sometimes they actually sell them as a freshwater fish. They definitely do best in saltwater, but they'll market them as freshwater lionfish, when in reality they're a toadfish. I think they're cooler than lionfish. They just kind of live under the rocks or down in the sand. You can see here when I'm releasing him, they'll actually kind of bury their tail down into the sand, those fins, and get those fins up under the sand to kind of anchor themselves, and then wait for food to crawl by usually, or swim by. They won't pass up a small fish to eat. Then I actually pretty much immediately caught a second one. And yeah, I believe it's a Gulf toadfish. There's, I think, 2 or 3 species down here, Atlantic toadfish, oyster toadfish. But check out those teeth on him. He was kind of showing off his mouth better for me while I was picking him up. I believe sometimes they're considered venomous. It's more like a bee sting than like a stonefish or a scorpion fish. And I've never even been jabbed a little bit, so I'm pretty loose with them. Here is a green porcelain crab, another fluorescent one. Super cool to see. They're sold in aquariums. They actually also are called anemone crabs because they like to perch up in corals or anemones, and they'll kind of sit there and filter feed. They have little fan arms. They're actually a species of squat lobster. Then we got a gopher tortoise we were passing by. Had to include him in this video. Super cool. They're endangered in the state of Florida. Then this is a mangrove root crab. He was good size. I was impressed with how big this one was. It was one of the biggest oddball looking crabs I've seen down in Florida. Usually see the big blue crabs and kind of the more typical aquatic crabs, but this guy was running around on this road by the shore, and he kind of slipped into this crack and disappeared, also fluorescent. Then we have a little frill fin goby, just a little guy, not too interesting, but definitely unique when I'm used to catching freshwater fish. Then here's the highlight of this night. I did catch a small snook, a little baby snook. I just actually dip netted him too, right off the coast. So pretty. These guys are super cool. They got that big lower lip for inhaling their food. But yeah, perfect little snook. A little bit on the skinny side, but I'm sure he'll fatten up if he doesn't get eaten. Being this small, they're definitely more likely to get eaten by predators than survive in the wild. You can see how thin he is here. Letting him go. Yeah, super unique little guy. Then final animal of the night, I found this big old sea hare. These are just a big algae-eating slug, basically. They call them hares because they get the little antennas on their face. Look like a rabbit. Yeah, fun. They're pretty commonly available in aquariums. They destroy hair algae in home aquariums. Almost too well. Sometimes they'll actually eat all the algae and starve themselves out. So they're one to trade back in. All right, but yeah, this is kind of just a preview of what's to come. The next video will be us going through the Everglades and the Florida Keys. So more and more South Florida. And that's when it'll really start picking up. Here's a baby barracuda to come. And then we got some shark and stingray action also. So the next video will be the real Florida highlight. But yeah, thanks for watching.